want to take a moment here to talk about using your time well in the editing process. Remember back when we talked about creating your interview questions? You don't want to just write the questions and go right into the interview. You want to craft them across a number of days so you can look at them and have time to edit them, revise, and reorder them. You want to do the same thing in the edit. Solutions will present themselves if you give them the time to show up. I remember when I learned this lesson. I was back in film school. I was editing a project on campus that was due at the end of the semester, and I was used to pulling all-night editing sessions back then, and I was preparing to do another one. The film that I was working on, it just wasn't coming together. But it was the night before Thanksgiving, and around midnight I decided to go home. I slept that night, and I even stayed home with my roommates that morning and had a nice Thanksgiving lunch. Then I went back to the edit bay that afternoon, and almost all the things that I just couldn't solve the night before were actually pretty easy solutions. I just couldn't see them without some space. It wasn't just that I was tired. I was used to staying up like that back then. It was just that I needed to step away from it so I could look at it with fresh eyes. Nowadays, I put that stepping away from the edit into my schedule. At any time, I might be working on prepping the questions for one interview, scheduling a different one, logging a third while editing a couple of videos and finishing up another one. That way, I get to step away from those different projects and let those ideas play in the back of my mind while I work on other projects. Speeding through an edit, that's a pretty good recipe for making a lesser video. You have to have the time to find the solutions that the edit needs. But do force yourself to revisit the edit when you have that time. It's easy to step away from it and then stay away. There's a great phrase that goes along with a graph of an artist's process. You can actually find it in a lot of timelines about making anything big. It's the dip section where it's called the Trough of Sorrow. When you start an idea, there's this huge excitement, this fun around beginning it, until the actual work and the challenges weigh you down into the Trough of Sorrow. For me, that happens in the edit bay. You start to see what you do and don't have to work with, and it can be hard to make it all make sense and be engaging. It's depressing. And that feeling, it can last for a while. The easiest thing in the world to do is just to give up. But there's usually a point where you can start to see how to solve some of the small problems and then some of the big problems, and little by little, you pull the project and you out of the trough. You might want to set a time in your calendar that you always work on this project, because if you don't, everything else in your schedule will take priority. Not that the other work is more important, but you'll do the other work to avoid stepping back into the trough. Most of my editing is done in the afternoon because I spend the morning avoiding editing by doing everything else on my to-do list. I know whereof I speak. Now, it does get easier. The trough doesn't last as long the more experience you get, and you find the solutions more easily, but it never really goes away. Sorry. That's the work right now. It's just combing the footage again and again and finding a better flow, getting rid of the diversions and repetitions, and finding the transitions in between all the sections. It's hard, but give yourself the time and force yourself to use the time, and the solutions will eventually present themselves.